Good evening. Welcome everyone to our March board meeting. Growing up in Minnesota, my sisters and my mother and I would get together and decide whether March was coming in like a lion or a lamb, and then we'd make a cake, usually with a lot of coconut, and decide whether it should be a lion or a lamb. Here in Frankfort this year, my attention wasn't caught by the weather as much as it was by the fact that 3M Corporate declared that the St. Paul location, so it's a location of 400 acres, 30 buildings, and 12,000 employees, switched to 100% renewable energy on March 1st. They're buying wind energy from southwestern Minnesota through Xcel Energy, and that's about 200 miles away. So to put that in perspective, they're buying wind energy that would be, if we in Frankfort were buying wind energy from Mount Vernon, Indiana. So the same distance, they maybe aren't buying those electrons, but it's offsetting their energy by using renewable. And longer term, their corporate goal is to be 100% renewable internationally by 2050. And their goal in less than 6 years is to be 50% renewable, and that would include the plant in Cincinnati, Kentucky. Also of note on that is that there's a movement called RE100, which is renewable energy 100%, and it's Dow Jones traded companies, and there are 3 of them here in Frankfort that are serious about moving to renewable energy. And that is Walmart. Their goal is to be 100% renewable energy by 2025. Starbucks, they're a little bit vaguer about their goal, but they're committed. And Lloyd's Banking Group, and we have Lloyd's of London here on Main Street. So moving on to our meeting tonight, I'm Anna Marie Pavlik-Rosen, Chair of the Plant Board, of the Board for the Plant Board. To my right, Walt Baldwin, our Vice Chair. Dawn Hale, Secretary-Treasurer, Board Member Steve Mason, and Board Member Jeff Bradshaw, and the Attorney for the Board, James Liebman. So, our first order of business is to approve meeting minutes from the February 18th meeting, the March 5th meeting, and the March 11th meeting. Have members had a chance to take a look at those? Do we want to consider approving them individually or as a group?
As a group.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the February 19th, March 5th, and March 11th meetings.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Don and Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our next item is accepting the financial report.
Yes,
So,
Madam Chair.
David?
Board of Directors, good evening. If you could, I'd like to start on page 19 of our board packet, just looking at the financial statements for the 8 months ending February 28, 2019. First, we start with our statement of net position, which is essentially the balance sheet for a nonprofit corporation. So this is as of February 28, 2019. Line 65, the plant board had just over $180.4 million in total assets. This is a very capital-intensive business, so 64% of our total assets are in our property, plant, and equipment, which is absolutely standard for this type of a company. We are up for the year 4.7 in total assets, which is a good thing. Looking at our liabilities for the period, line 130, plant board as of February 28th had just over $95.7 million. You can see we are up $7.5 million for the year over year. Most of that, though, is due, well, I would say all of that, to things outside of the plant board's control, unfunded liability for the Kentucky retirement system, which we are a part of. So when it comes to things we handle liability-wise, we are definitely taking care of business. You take our assets and subtract your liability, giving you the net position of the company. As of February 28th, line 65, we had just over $180.4 million. I should take that back. Line 160, total net position of $84.7 million. Of that, just over $5 million was unrestricted net position, bringing your total liabilities and net position equaling your assets to $180.4 million. Not a whole lot to report month-over-month changes from last month. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer on the net position. If not, I'd like to move over and look at our cash and investment schedule. This is giving us our balance of cash and investments as of February 28th, 2019. The top portion, looking at restricted and unrestricted cash. The total, line 80, of just over $21.9 million as of February 28th. Looking below are restricted and unrestricted investments. We do have these in certificates of deposit held in local financial institutions, totaling on line 135 of just over $14.5 million. I'd like to flip over to the next page, page 21, and talk about our bonds, leases, and KIA loans payable. We started the year out July 1, 2018 with $41.9 million in liabilities related to our bonds, leases, and loans. You can see for the period, most of our payments, principal payments, are semi-annual. For this 8-month period, we have paid over $3.5 million in principal, bringing our February 28th balance to $38.4 million. So as I've reported every month, we're on track as a company and looking at our strategic plans going forward to be able to keep that debt balance in check and work it down substantially over the coming years, as that graph below represents. If there are no questions on the balance sheet type discussions, I'd like to move over and talk briefly on page 23 and just look at the financial performance of the plant board. This is through 8 months, ending February 28th. We provide the month-to-date and year-to-date current period versus the prior year. So looking at page 23, I'm going to focus on year-to-date column. Total revenue, electric, water, and cable divisions is just $68.9 million. Looking at the next to last column, you can see we're very much in line where we were revenue-wise a year ago. Looking at line 50, so we take our revenue and subtract our operating expenses. These are expenses of all of our wholesale purchases of service that we resell to customers, plus all the men and women in the field that make our services work, which we calculate as total operating expenses just over $47.5 million, which you can see we are below from a year ago and below for budget. Bringing our gross contribution, that revenue minus operating expense, on line 55 to just under $21.5 million for the period. From that, we subtract our general and administrative expenses on line 280 for the first 8 months of the year at $15.4 million. Then on top of that, add our other revenue. These are revenue we consider non-operating, outside the normal course of business. You can see on line 350, we're just under $1.6 million for the period, bringing our net contribution to our net assets on line 355 of just over $7.6 million. You can compare that to where we were a year ago. You can see that we're very much in line where we were a year ago. So we have details, of course, for each of our electric, water, and telecom divisions. But I would like to flip over to a report that I know the board expressed during last budget session you'd like to see on page 39. So on page 39 of your board packet, this is a schedule of the fixed assets that we have either sold or disposed of during this 8-month period. You can see on the far right we have 3 columns. Total sales amount of just over $65,500, less expenses to sell those, just over $1,700, bringing our net proceeds of $46,400 of once again sold or disposed assets. So these are amounts that are hard to predict at the beginning of the budget period. So these are not funds included in our budget. So these are cash money that we will add to our cash reserves and just adds to that cash balance that we show you each month. But other than that, I have the standard reports of all of our checking registers for our 2 most active accounts and summaries of all of our banking activity for the period. But we are coming up, as you know, on budget preparation for 2019-20 fiscal year. I provided and talked about the schedule for that budget last month, but once again, just want to let you know that this month and next month, If the board has anything you would like to discuss regarding a board initiative or project that you'd like to let us know about that we can include in the budget, we'd be happy to do that. So other than that, we're moving forward as we would about this time of year, and be glad to answer any questions.
Looks good. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, next item of business is website comments. I
Need
know.
a motion to accept the.
Oh,
financials.
I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to accept the financials?
So moved.
And a second? Second from Steve. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm sorry I even jumped there. Do we have any public comment this evening? Go ahead, please.
It's on.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm illiterate up here with this. Good evening. Thank you all for letting me speak tonight. My name is Kathy Warren. Tonight, I would like to discuss the digital set-top converter costs. Since the latest increase in cable rates that we had, I would like to ask the board to consider possibly lowering the cost of the cable boxes. Maybe those who have one or more to consider reducing those costs. I have 5 TVs, and that's my choice. But I was just kind of totaling my total boxes, and they're like $3 a piece, $15. And in time you add the taxes into it, it pretty much goes up to like 24 something. So anyways, I'd like for you to get with your great staff and maybe talk about something that maybe throw your customers a bone with this latest increase. We know that there's going to be more increases coming down the road. We know that. I don't know if any of y'all on Facebook and how often you all, it's the social media. There's a lot of folks that were upset with the latest rate increase. My good friend Adam explained and showed me the chart and listened to me moan and groan a little bit, and he made me understand what was happening, and I do sort of understand what's happening. But I know that folks are seeking other sources. They're going to seek other sources and dropping cable, and as we know, I'm afraid cable's going to be obsolete here sooner than we think. But, I appreciate everyone here and all that you do. You don't have an easy task. Y'all don't have an easy task. But maybe you can consider that, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. We have our new budget coming up, and it's something that we can certainly discuss at that time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to website customer comments. I know there was one concerning feedback on
Yes,
payments.
ma'am. I believe they've reached out to the customer and talked to them. I don't
That's
have all
been
the
resolved.
details, but I think they have made contact.
Okay, thank you. So, cable report, Adam?
Yes, ma'am. The cable report starts on page 89 of your board package. Of course, the first page of the report is customer penetrations for the month. Been the same story just about all year. Everything's looking, above budget. We were down a little bit in security and pay-per-view, but that's kind of been the same. We've actually gained from last month, but we're still down overall. The next page on page 70, or page 90, is the trouble calls for the month. We're down 78 versus this time last year. We're up 16 from last month, but it's basically the same things, more inside wiring, customer equipment, things of that nature, which we're working on. But it's good to see the decline, so maybe we can keep that in motion. So If there's no other question about that, on page 91 is the outage for the month of February. We had 2 outages. One on February 4th, which was a power supply, and the power supply didn't fail. It was basically the wiring going to it from the electric. They shorted out and caused the problem, but we got that repaired. And the other one on February the 8th was a power inserter. And basically what that is we have the power supply, and then out of the power supply we feed the coax that actually amplifies and feeds power to the amplifiers and the NIUs on the back of the house that provide telephone service. And we had one of those burn up. But that was the only 2 outages for the month of February. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, customer service.
Good evening, members of the board. For the month of February, we added 135 new accounts, had a total call count of 4,610 calls, 1,551 walk-ins, and 6,803 cashier transactions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I did have a question on what is detailed billing versus just general billing?
We have our CSR 1 and 2s now who can answer questions such as what's my account balance or when's my last day to pay. Those are general questions about someone's bill. Detailed is more, why is my bill so high? What's my kilowatt usage? How many gallons? Water leaks, adjustments, those kinds of things. Okay. So those take longer, and then payment arrangements fall under that as well.
In your opinion, do you think people have trouble understanding the bill? Is there anything we could do to improve the way the bill's laid out that would help them?
That's not typically a question that we get. Usually it's just more, how am I using that much? And it's going back and looking at their previous usage at the same location and advising them that if they look at year over year, they tend to go, oh, okay, I did use that much last year. And so on our portal, we have the ability to show them what they use for the entire year. And that's really helped customers to see that in February to February, I do kind of use the same, but when they compare it to the month before, they don't always see that. So I don't know if it would be beneficial to put that on our statements as we're trying to encourage people to go to the portal, but that information is there for them.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
As you turn to page 97 in your board book, you'll see that our SAIDI number for the month of February is 75.277. On page 98, you'll see your pie chart. It has the causes for each kind of outage and the percentages. Then on page 99, you will see the actual number for each one of those percentages. See if we had a total of 23 outages for the month of February. And on page 100, you'll see your top 10 outages, with a total of 3,206 customers affected last month. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay. And, oops. Our next report is SEPA.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Board. For the month of January, again, we're a couple of months behind on the SEPA reporting. But for the month of January, I'm happy to report that we cleared $17,166. So again, that's positive compared to where it has been earlier last year. So that turned out well for the month. The average energy price was down a little bit in January versus December, and the allocated energy that we had was down a little bit also from December, but we still again came out on the positive side. So that is on page 101. And then if you look on page 102, you'll see our chart. Again, since it's starting out a new calendar year, it doesn't have a lot of information for this year, obviously. And then 103, as always, shows us our running total since we began SEPA in 1997. And so that gives you our net benefit of a little over $10 million. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just had one observation. As you noted, the price went down a little bit from December, but compared to last year, a year ago, January, that was 54. 61 versus now 39. Just fluctuation.
I mean, it could be all kinds of things from
Yeah.
power usage to, congestion and all kinds of factors. So it can't, it changes constantly.
It does.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea, the average market price for the month of January was anywhere from $24.99 a megawatt hour to $197 a megawatt hour. So
Oh,
it
like
even
time of
varies
day or-
greatly between, the month. The average is what you see here, which is the 39.55.
Okay. So it can be dramatic variation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, KYMEA.
Board, KyMEA approved the all requirement rate for all the KyMEA currently AR member. I think it's very good based on what they have now today. The saving total compared to KU rate is roughly about 7.98% saving. That's consider including if the DEPARTMENTAL agreement, the current case in the FERC, if KyMEA didn't win. So those rates already include those. Consider worst case scenario. So we could potentially have a FERC rule that case in next 2 days. Currently, they post in the FERC agenda. There's a high chance they may have an answer in 2 days.
On the 21st.
21st.
Which is the first day of spring.
Yes. We don't know anything that yet. We certainly hope, we believe we should win. But there are so many, so complicated. And we'll find out exactly first decision. But this rate, actually 8% saving, is considered that part. If worst case scenario, that's the 7.9% saving. If the best case, potentially there could be a lot more for us. But until we see it, we cannot predict that either. So.
Once we see it, would that be the end, or would we appeal, or KYMEA might appeal?
That's exactly. So that's why we say there's uncertainty there. Both parties could appeal that. Potentially, there could be a lawsuit to beyond the FERC. So it's not going to have a very clean, even we have a FERC decision. So going to take a time, 6 months or even years time to finalize it. So it can be very complicated, but I'm not attorney. I cannot claim that either. But we could have our FERC attorney give you a very detailed report once FERC make those decisions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer it.
So we have a KYMEA meeting coming up next week.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Are there any major things, or we don't know the agenda yet?
No. I don't think there's really a major one in front of us. They did propose some risk management policy for the future. Once KyMEA start to provide energy, there potentially they will have a trading. So that part of policy will be come to the board to ask approval. So,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We could add the metering equipment
Oh,
for
thank
KyMEA
you.
got installed last week, and all that got finalized. So just another one of those steps, but that's something that we talked about a little bit at KyMEA too.
Okay. So it's installed and tested and
Yes, and
everything's
communicating
set.
with KyMEA.
Okay.
So, obviously, we're still being billed from KU, but there is
Right.
a second set of meters installed now
Yeah,
for KyMEA,
but
and that's all.
we're within 2 months or less than 2 months of actually switching over, so it's important.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I always fail to mention, even we have a new contract agreement, the energy can deliver from different resource compared to KU. But if you look at the system reliability, there's nothing changed. we still have the same service, network service, KU transmission service. What I'm trying to say, the reliability will be the same. We believe will be smooth transition. We will have energy, all the light will be on.
Okay, we won't feel different.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, Kim, you look like you're ready to talk about safety.
I don't have any accidents to report, but I did want to mention we received our experience modification rate, which has a big influence on our workers' comp rates. And if you know how those work, a 1 is industry standard, and anything less than a 1, you typically see a reduction in rates. Anything more, we had a 0.62, which is really a good rate, and it's down from last year, which was a 0.72. So as far as at least in my career, 24 years career, that's the lowest experience modification rating we've had. So that should be good news when it comes to rate.
That's good news, but it means it'll be hard to beat.
That's true. 2 more years.
Okay, thank you. Okay, water distribution, Alan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. The water distribution report can be found on pages 107 through 109. We had 1 main break and 2 outages, and then I'd like to update the board. In a couple of weeks, we will begin our project on East Main, which will affect traffic into downtown. It's in coordination with the City of Frankfort, the Sewer Board, Columbia Gas, and hopefully AT&T. But the utilities will be replaced pretty much from Capitol Avenue Bridge all the way to Martin Luther King, a combination of which the water's going first. We'll be working on the lower section of East Main first. We just got approval from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet on our traffic control plan. That section will be reduced to 2 lanes. I don't know about the sewer project, their duration, but the total project we're estimating 6 to 9 months. How long it will actually be 2 lanes in each area, we don't know. The water we're hoping to be done within 3 months, and hopefully we'll be out of there. Then sewer has got a bid on, are they open? Chuck, do you know, are they open theirs on the 1st next week?
Bids have been opened.
Have it?
Commission's got approved.
So the sewer will have a contractor that'll be going after us, and then Columbia Gas will be working in some of that same time. And this is all part of the Tiger Grant, is considered participation. These were shovel-ready projects. So hopefully next week we'll have a message board up, giving some people some information. We got a letter going out to the residents along in those neighborhoods along the intersection, but we'll try to get some information out on that too. So, but I wanted to give the board an update. Hopefully we can get in, get out, and be done. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes, sir.
So what's AT&T doing?
Well, we don't know. It's everybody, they were trying to, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet had proposed a repaving pretty much from Capitol Avenue Bridge all the way to, I think,
Just short of Martin Luther King.
yeah. And so it benefits us if we get in and do any kind of rehab projects before they repave. So everybody's trying to get in and do their rehab projects before they repave the road. It saves us money on repaving the road and restoration costs. But AT&T has also got stuff in that 1 lane. If you're going down the hill, it's the far left lane. So we don't know what if they're gonna do anything while we're in there. We're trying to make sure that we all met to make sure we coordinated our stuff. Whether they will or not, we don't know.
So do we have any opportunity to do anything else there? Rhetorical.
You mean in terms of water, or you mean electrical?
No, he
or
knows what I'm
cable?
doing.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
So I think you said at the beginning it's like a 3-month project to work in that area?
Hopefully hopefully our water project will be 3 months.
Okay.
Hopefully less, but hopefully it goes
Excellent.
really quick. There's really not that many services from Glens Creek Road down. It's mostly water main. You know, there used to be a lot of houses from the old greenhouse down on the side of the hill.
Yeah.
Those have all been torn down, so there's really not that many services, and that's what takes a lot of time going back and switching those over. So most of it's just main work and tying in the new mains. There's very few actual individual services in those. So it goes pretty quick.
Okay.
Hopefully 100 feet a day. Maybe not quite that much, but hopefully. We usually go a little faster than some of the others.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Julie, on water treatment.
Good evening, Board. The water treatment plant report is on page 111 in your packet. For the month of February, we treated 218 million gallons of water a day, averaging just at 7.8 million gallons per day. I'm sorry, it was 218 million for a month. That would be a pretty good treatment for the plant. We continued our rain pattern for February. We had 8.2 inches of rain, 4th wettest February for Frankfort. Fit into meteorological winter, which is December, January, and February. That was the wettest on record for Frankfort. Good news is we're below rainfall in March right now. So we only had 2 inches, so maybe we'll have some dry weather. Because of all the rainfall, we did see a flooding event in the river. It got up to 32 feet on the 25th of February. That's a foot over the flood stage. It was muddy and it was moving. It was really rocking that day. But the water treatment plant never missed a beat. We treated the water, never had any issues, and happy to report we met all of our regulatory standards, and the guys did a good job. The other little bit of news is, if the board will remember, back in June, you approved the purchase of a raw water pump. And this is not something you go to Lowe's and just pull off the shelf and purchase. We finally received that pump last week. It was properly constructed, it had been tested, and we are now prepping to pull another low service pump here in the next month and a half and install that one. So it took a while, but we did get it finally. So, have any questions?
Well, I wanted to make a couple comments on Frankfort on Tap, our branded water, drinking water, and that there's been several discussions at various meetings that we've had concerning the bottle filling stations for schools. And I've thought about this and considered the KRS restrictions that we have of not just handing out money, and thought about our Frankfort on Tap program, and felt that all of the schools should have the benefit of the possibility of a bottle filling station, and want to develop a program to be part of our July 1st new budget, and have talked a little bit with the health department and some with a couple of school board members, and think that that's a direction that we should go to develop a program for that. So I wanted to mention that. And it's, some other institutions have contacted us about maybe participating as well, and to work all of that out and work it into our July 1st budget. So I wanted to mention that.
Since you brought that up, I thought we would have another time, but I'm going to bring this up now. As we've talked about the Franklin County project, one of the things that I've thought about with that, and my hesitancy at the time, which we hadn't brought it up anyway, so it really didn't, is that if you do one, there's 10 other schools in Frankfort. So a $6,000 cost was not a $6,000 cost, because potentially it would be whatever it is per school times 10. And so that's one of my hesitancy in doing this. My other issue is that I don't really feel comfortable in being a grantor agency in Frankfort, unless the ratepayers tell me that's what they want. I mean, if the ratepayers tell us that they want us to be a grantor agency for X amount of dollars a year, then I'd be fine with it. But when people come in the public hearing and talk about their inability to pay their bill, we had someone talk today about a reduction in the cable bill. So when they come and do that, and we become a grantor agency, which is not our mission. I know it's good public citizenry, but we need to develop some kind of policy plan of how we do that before we jump into doing these kinds of projects, because it is not our primary role in Frankfort, and we're spending ratepayers' money when we do it. So I appreciate your point, but I think we have to sit down and think about how we some kind of plan of action. And I'd like the input from the ratepayers, whether it be some survey in their bill that says, yeah, you can. We don't mind you taking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 annually and being a grantor for various good projects around Frankfort. But I just feel funny sitting here granting monies that are not my monies to worthy projects. But I have citizens coming here saying we need a break on our bill. So how you balance those two things, and I think there needs to be a discussion before we go in to start doing that. And by the way, I want to say the superintendent did not contact me personally, so my only communication with him is what he wrote in the newspaper. So I don't know where I was supposed to communicate with him at, since there had not been a meeting, but that was his communication with me was through the newspaper. So, but that's where I'm at with granting. The ratepayers need to tell me or indicate that they would be willing to grant some of their revenue, their pay, to worthy projects around Frankfort.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The school board, or Mr. Kopp, appeared before us in December. My point has been that we needed to give him an answer. The Frankfort Plant Board has contributed in other ways to the community. We help sponsor the downtown concert series in the fall. We have a scholarship program. Traditionally, and historically, we've done other things. We have the money in the budget to promote Frankfort on Tap. I think this was an excellent opportunity for us to promote the Frankfort on Tap program. I have no problem with us having a policy about future contributions to the community, but I think we owe it to the school board to give them an answer, and I think asking them to wait until July for an answer is just carrying it too far. I think they deserve an answer now, and to me, having a program and the water fountains for the schools are two separate issues. And I would like for us to be able to go ahead and help the schools with their water fountains. And the statement you made about the legal ramifications, I've checked with James. James, you can pipe in here. There is not a legal problem with us doing this, correct, from your just off the top of your head opinion?
If you couch it that way, that's my initial reaction. If it's something the board chooses to do, we would want to take a more careful look at it. But I agree that it's similar in nature to things the board has done in the past and historically. And of course, it's a water project. It's a community project, but it's something we want to take a closer look at if we get to the point of the board choosing to do something. And at this point in the discussion, we may have jumped the gun a little bit because I don't know what's really before the board at this point. It's appropriate to discuss, but there's not a real issue. It can be brought up, I guess, at any time, but it looks like you leaped into it a little bit when we were discussing the water treatment plant.
We'll go on to item 5.1, consider award of bid invitation 1673 for water treatment plant sedimentation basin sludge valve replacement project to Herrick Company Incorporated for $82,151.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to sum this one up for you. The valves used to remove the settled residual material or sludge from the water treatment plant sed basins have deteriorated and they do need replacing. Staff prepared a bid invitation for replacement of the telescoping valves, the plug valves, and the drain valves in each of the 3 drain valve vaults. The bid invitation was sent to 5 contractors, advertised in the newspaper, and listed on our website. Bids were opened on February 25th. We've received 1 response from Herrick Company. The Water Treatment Department has budgeted $75,000 for the project in the fiscal year 2019 budget on page 20, line 970. As the OSG cell replacement project will be approximately $8,000 under budget, water treatment plant staff will reallocate those funds to cover the overage on this project. Herrick Company has successfully performed work for FPB in the past, and we recommend that the bid be awarded to Herrick Company in the amount of $82,151. And I'll answer any questions.
Doesn't look like we have any questions. Do we have a motion?
Sure. I move we award bid invitation 1673 for the water treatment plant sedimentation basin sludge valve replacement project to Herrick Company for $82,151.
And a second? Second from Jeff. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you, Julie. So you aren't Ryan? I'm not Ryan. Okay. Okay. So Harvey, thank you for presenting this.
Yeah.
Consider approval of the renewal agreement with Windstream for internet bandwidth, 48,000.
Yeah, so this is just a simple renewal of the internet bandwidth that we have with Windstream. One of the circuits that we have represents a 45% reduction in the rate that we were paying, and the excuse me, the term is a 3-year term.
Okay.
Any questions?
Do we have any understanding of why they reduced the rate?
I mean, internet bandwidth is constantly going
Okay.
down.
Sure.
We always try to renegotiate at the end of the term for the best price we can get.
Okay. So are there any questions or a motion?
I move we approve the renewal of agreement with Windstream for $48,000.
Second. A second from Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, 5.3, consider changes to the FPB employee guidelines related to holidays, vacation leave, sick leave, and funeral bereavement leave policies. Diane to discuss.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Staff asked the board to consider approving changes to the holiday schedule to specifically remove President's Day, add a floating holiday, and also add New Year's Eve. Being open for President's Day and closing for New Year's Eve is consistent with the city, state, and county's holiday schedules. Adding the floating holiday means that the plant board would be open for our customers, since that's a day off that each individual employee would choose for their preference. Since we've observed President's Day for 2019, we propose adding the floating holiday starting January 1st of 2020. In the board package on page 129, there is the section regarding the changes, and I asked Kathy to pass out a replacement page for the board members. I left out a sentence that added the floating holiday. The sentence says, in addition, beginning January 1st, 2020, employees shall receive one floating holiday. And that would bring the total number of holidays observed to 11 and a half, which again is also consistent with other local agencies. So, any questions at this point? Other changes that we're recommending is new language in the holiday, vacation leave, sick leave, and the funeral bereavement leave policies to clarify that employees who work a longer workday, such as the 12-hour shift, receive the same number of paid time off hours as all other employees, with the one exception of funeral bereavement leave. And our recommendations are based on best practices according to other employers and the Society for Human Resource Management. And the specific language is also included in the, starting on page, it's 129 of the board package. Have any questions?
Go ahead, Steve.
So are you saying that if you work a 12-hour shift and you take a day off, that if you only get 8 hours of credit toward that day off, you have to take the other 4 hours off some other way? I mean, you pay for the other 4 hours.
Well, what I'm saying is that when employees accumulate sick leave, they accumulate 8 hours per month.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the rate is for the vacation time, they would not accrue 12 hours per month.
Yeah.
They would get 8 hours per month. So when they take, when they're absent and they're going to use their sick leave, they can take 12 hours of sick leave to be paid for that whole 12-hour day. But they don't accumulate more time than employees who work an 8-hour shift. And then for holiday, employees would be paid for 8 hours of holiday, across the board. If they wanted to be paid for the 4 hours, then they could use vacation time. They'd have that option. They could just leave it and be paid for 8 hours, or they could, if they have vacation time accumulated, they could use that to supplement the 8 hours of holiday pay that they're getting on that day.
So someone's working a 12-hour day
Yes.
on Christmas, that for them to have the whole Christmas day off, they will have to pay for 4 hours of that day.
They can use their vacation time. I mean, alternatively, right now, if we have 11 and a half holidays, employees are getting 92 hours of holiday pay. If you gave the employees who work 12-hour shifts 12 hours for each holiday, they would get 138 hours of holiday pay. So it's just giving equal amount of time to all the employees.
So they pretty much have to take 4 hours off on Christmas if they're already off.
It depends on their schedule, because there are, in their 2-week schedule, there are 1 week they work more hours than they do the second week. So they may already have 40 hours and may not need to use 4 hours, to get a 40-hour work week.
Would they be able to use half of their floating day?
They could. I don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah, as you know, Diane, I really had problems with this,
Understand.
but it is standard, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But it does appear that that's the way everybody does it with the 12-hour shifts. So I wish we could come up with something, because to me, it's like, if one of our NOC employees is a new employee and has just started, say, and has worked 2 months, so they've gotten 16 hours of sick time, but they have to take 2 days off because they got the flu, then they're taking 24 days off, or 24 hours off, but they've only accrued 16 hours. And so they have another, 8 hours in there that they don't have the time for. But I'm assuming that everyone is going to be generous and handle it if something like that comes up.
They could be approved to be off without pay, or if it's possible for them to make up the hours at another time, that definitely would be something that the department can approve.
And one thing to also remember with the 12-hour schedule, they're not working 5-day weeks.
Right.
So, excuse me, that's a little bit different than maybe some of the other, if you're going to take a vacation day, yeah, it's 12 hours, but they can take 12 hours and you get quite a few more days in a row quickly. And so that's kind of the same thing with the sick thing. Again, you're not working as many days in a week, so you have more opportunities to, if you're going to be sick, it's likely you're going to have a day off coming right along with it. So those are just some of the things to kind of think about. I think you kind of have to think about sick time and vacation time more from an annual standpoint than from a day standpoint, because you accrue so much for a year, for instance. And so you get, for instance, sick time, if you gave it on a 12-hour basis, those particular employees would get 144, obviously, a year, and the rest of the employees would get 96. And as you save up your time, and I agree, at the very beginning of someone's employment, they're going to have very limited, but that is a smaller piece. But as you accrue time, like most employees do, yeah, you may take 12 hours, but in a whole year, if you take the average of how many times people are sick, they would be, using the same amount of time.
If you look at year-round, the 12-hour employee, 8-hour will be accumulated same amount, sick leave and holiday and vacation. So if you look at long period of time, we are treating them exactly same. And it's something new to us, but it's not new to city and many others, like the police department, 911, they've been on that for a long time. I think our policy reflect very similar practice, right?
It's standard practice to
Same
do it
practice.
this way.
I move we approve changes to the FPB employee guidelines related to holidays, vacation leave, sick leave, and funeral bereavement leave policies.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. Yeah, the next item is also, consider 2 new authorized positions and organizational changes.
Thank you. To support the general manager's efforts to provide excellent service to customers and to improve operations, we're recommending 2 new positions: a chief financial officer and a cable telecommunications superintendent. In addition, we recommend eliminating the assistant general manager for cable telecommunications position. And we also propose to change the title of the Assistant General Manager of Operations to the Chief Operating Officer. The Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Financial Officer positions will report directly to the General Manager. Based on the proposed changes, the departments reporting directly to the Chief Operating Officer are electric, water distribution, water treatment, electric and water engineering, support services, network operations center, and cable telecommunications. The departments reporting directly to the Chief Financial Officer would be customer service, information technology, and finance. The safety and human resource departments will report jointly to the general manager and the assistant general manager of administration staff attorney position. Based on the plant board job classification and compensation plan, the pay grade for the cable telecommunications superintendent position would be a grade 120, and the chief financial officer would be a grade 124. The general manager and staff plan to recommend additional changes once the above positions are filled and with the input of the individuals in those roles. And due to vacancies, there are funds available in the current budget to cover any promotional increases that may occur to fill the positions. A copy of the proposed job descriptions, list of authorized positions, and revised organizational chart are included in the detail pages for this board item. I did make an error on the org chart. Under the cable telecom superintendent, I did add the senior engineering technician and the engineering for cable, but I also somehow duplicated that over on under the chief electric engineer, and that was an error. And there was also one position that I had, the head-end and digital video technician. That position reports to the security and broadband technology manager rather than, I think I had it under the chief cable technician. It's so small you can hardly see it, the chart. But I wanted to let you know that I'll make those changes. Be happy to answer any questions.
One thing I'd like to mention, the staff really want to focus on, hope the change will be improve our service to customer, and also we hope we can enhance the capability to the telecommunication, particularly if we are looking for build a more backbone on communication part, like a fiber or anything else. So it's really hope increase the efficiency, and we are not looking gain more position in the process. And those staff report to the CFO and the COO, their pay class is not higher than in current assistant general manager either. It's in the same pay range.
Well, I move we approve the 2 new authorized positions and organizational changes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. So our next item is consider executing memorandum of agreement between the City of Frankfort and the FEWPB regarding reimbursement for utility relocation and replacement work on the 2nd Street Tiger Grant project. Event to discuss.
Yes, Madam Chair and Board. As I'm sure you're aware, we've heard about the Tiger Grant that the city's been awarded from the Department of Transportation. And so in keeping with that, the Tiger Grant stands for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. And the city's gotten just under $8 million for that grant. And so as part of that project, the plant board will play a role in relocating some of our overhead facilities and redoing our water line through 2nd Street. And as Alan was talking to you about, some of the shovel-ready projects involve the plant board as well on East Main, as he was talking about. So what you have in front of you is a memorandum of agreement between the city and the Frankfort Plant Board regarding how they will reimburse us for our utility relocation work. The scope and everything you have in your board package there, and the details of the agreement basically provide $150,000 in reimbursements for the water line replacement on 2nd Street, and up to $300,000 in reimbursements for overhead utility line relocations. And those overhead utilities would include telecom as well as the electric on that particular portion. The water department had originally budgeted $175,000 additional monies for the project that were going to be in fiscal year 2021, but in keeping with the schedule that you see also in the agreement there, we will, when the budget comes up this time, we'll be moving those forward a year to keep with that schedule. I think the staff attorney has reviewed the agreement and it meets with his approval. And so staff recommends that the board approve the MOA, and also introduced Chuck is here with the city. He's the project manager for the city's portion of that project. So Chuck Knowles, he ran for magistrate this past year, so we got to see Chuck quite a bit. He came to a lot of our meetings, and we got to know him pretty well. But so we've been working with Chuck on this project, and so I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and if there's other specifics, Chuck may be able to answer some of those as well.
I had a question on Exhibit A, which talks about the schedule, or refers to the schedule. Some things have already started as of February 1st of this year.
The preliminary engineering, yes.
And then the things Alan was talking about aren't really part of this grant.
Correct.
but
Those
they-
things, this is basically an agreement that defines how they will reimburse us according
Okay.
to the grant. And when we put the grant together, those monies that I kind of read off to you there, 150 and 300, were kind of what were agreed to, that the plant board would be reimbursed, and then we would be putting some of the monies in ourselves. So the part on East Main were shovel-ready projects that are the plant board was doing in that area that are part of the overall project, but we would not be reimbursed on any of those
Oh, I
particular
see.
part of the
Okay.
projects. That's why you don't find those in here.
Okay.
There's also a map on the agreement that kind of shows the specific, I guess, extents of exactly where the reimbursements would occur. I think that was on page 2 of the agreement. There's actually a highlighted area on there.
Yeah, it's 162 in our books. So. Okay. And it, I was amazed at how much planning goes into it before you actually are doing the work, because it extends out to 2021 and maybe beyond.
Yeah, I'm glad Chuck's on board. There's a lot of pieces that have to come together, and he's doing a great job on the city's part, making sure everybody is aware of what's going on. I think that's going to make it, I think that's going to make it better for the public and the folks that live in those areas and work in those areas as well. So we've had quite a few meetings to coordinate things, and certainly the water staff, the electric and telecommunications will all be heavily involved as we move into the pieces that we do as well. So we're looking forward to the project. I think it's going to be a good project.
Okay, looks good. Okay. So I guess, do we have a motion to approve the memorandum? Okay.
Second.
Okay. The motion, just to read that for the public, is approve of the Memorandum of Agreement between the City of Frankfort and FEWPB regarding reimbursements for utility relocation and replacement work on 2nd Street for the Tiger Grant project, or 2nd Street Tiger Grant project. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed. Let's see, number 6, we have informational items. I don't believe we have any. Okay. General manager's comments? Okay, you already said everything you want to say. Good. Informational, old and new business?
I guess I would just like some clarification of the water bottle issue, or water fountain issue, rather. So what you all are saying is that rather than go ahead and give the county schools the $6,000 for the water stations, you want to wait until July and have a program in place and then revisit the water fountain stations? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think developing a program for our July 1st budget. So we're in a development stage. I agree with what Steve mentioned earlier, that we give some money to one location, everybody else is going to line up. And also his concern about, is this something we should even be doing?
I think if we're going to ask if it's something we need to be doing, we have more than just the water stations to be looking at there. You know, we can ask, should we be sponsoring the downtown concert series? Should we be doing the scholarships, which I think is great. I wouldn't want to see us eliminate that, but I think it's, you know, if we're going to ask about if we should be doing the water stations, which is part of promoting our Frankfort on Tap program, then I think there is also a broader question there. So I just think we need to be able to give the schools an answer on the water station. And if the answer is, well, maybe in July, then I think that's I just think we have missed a great opportunity to partner with our community and to have positive public relations. It's something, we talk so much about improving our image in the community, and yet we have this opportunity to do it. The Franklin County schools are one of our biggest ratepayers. There are 6,000 kids that are in the school system that, again, their parents are our ratepayers. We talk about giving back to our ratepayers. Yet something as simple and positive as this, we drag our feet on and wait months before we even begin to even discuss it. And I think that's a pathetic way for us to do business.
We'll now move to call closed session pursuant to KRS 61810(1) to discuss pending litigation regarding reservoir construction and regarding Marrillia, Shelton construction matters.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Do we have a motion to come back into closed session, open session?
So
Sorry.
moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is all in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.